co-chair and myself, the co-chair being Senator Tony Moore, the General Secretary of the BWU. I am Edwin O'Neill, President of the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados. Let me welcome you warmly to this gymnasium for the ongoing discussions on the BOSS program. When the idea was first mooted, all of the trade union leaders recognized that such a matter would need the cooperation, the consideration, the opinions of the members who make up the union. There were discussions at the level of the social partnership, as there was amongst some of the leadership of the labor movement. It was then determined, after much commentary, that it would have been a good thing for the principal architects of what is now the BOSS program to speak directly to the membership of labor. The Prime Minister, being the primary architect, graciously consented to participate in this interaction between labor and government. That is the background for why we are here. When you hear the presentation, you are invited to fully participate by way of questions and or commentary on what you hear this evening. Hopefully, by the time you've come to the end, you will be in a position to give the leadership of your respective unions a clear and definitive answer on what your thoughts are on the BOSS program. With those comments, I now invite my co-chair, Senator Tony Moore, to make any remarks.
Good afternoon to everybody. Brother O'Neill, you have gave quite a comprehensive welcome. I think I wouldn't want to steal too much from the presentation, but would allow for Dr. Greenidge to be able to present to you so that we have as much time as possible afforded for conversation afterwards. I'd just like to say welcome to those who are joining us via Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube, of course. We welcome your feedback and your comments as well, and we'll be taking them in this session. So with that, I think we can start to move further into the agenda.
We will just, thank you, Senator Moore. I just need to inform that we will be joined by a Zoom audience, and my welcome to you, the participants on the floor, is no less warm for those who will join us electronically. I'd also like to invite Ms. Constance, President of the BNA, to the head table as the leader of that significant group for whom this meeting was, who we saw as the main group in this meeting, the health workers. Madam Premier.
I take it you're acknowledging the president of BAMP too, Dr. Da Silva, who is hiding behind his black mask in the back. But Thank you. I shouldn't say hiding. Who is behind a black mask? I'm going to do like the General Secretary and literally leave the time for you all to be able to ask questions as much as possible. But suffice it to say that we see this as an opportunity for a win-win for you as workers because you're getting your salary effectively, however which way you want to get it, and the value of it is not being tampered with. And Dr. Greenidge will go through all of the details of it very shortly. Secondly, it's a win-win for government because what we need is a fiscal space and not necessarily access to additional financing. Dr. Greenidge will explain that to you, and that is therefore why we are seeking to take what is recurring expenditure as salaries and reformulate it as capital expenditure for projects that will hire people and that will allow us to be able to ensure that as many of our brothers and sisters are working as possible, given the fact that we have over 41,000 unemployment benefit claims. That's not necessarily people. That may hasten to add. Our unemployment rate had actually dropped a low, I think, in January of 9.5%, which is significant because obviously it had gone as high as 11 and 12 in the last few years. But this has now, one in a lifetime event, has put us back to behind, and we have to start over again. Thirdly, it is a win-win for savings. A country needs capital formation, needs savings in order for investment. You need it at the personal level, the country needs it at the collective level. And fourthly, it allows us to close the circle of enfranchisement by ensuring that Barbadians en masse will not simply be tenants in their own country, but through savings and other participation in financial instruments, it means that we are allowing Barbadians ultimately to get into a new form of enfranchisement, which is effectively taking a stake in other areas of the economy and in financial instruments that hitherto we had not a lot of people doing. We have indicated in the past that we are going to do everything in our power to be able to make sure that I want to welcome Minister Bostic. And Jeffrey, come, there's room up here for you, sir. No, we're going to make some room, don't worry. The bottom line is that we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that this is as seamless as possible and that we take it from there to be able to give you the comfort in the same way that the people who invested in savings bonds, we deliberately excluded them from any form of restructuring on the last occasion. And given all that we have put in place, we do not anticipate, we do not expect that the government of Barbados should ever have to go there again. And in fact, if we go there, we would now have to pay back billions of dollars. That just simply is unsustainable. And that's why we are being as deliberate and precise as we are in all that we do, because the country has to maintain discipline while at the same time creating opportunities for as many people to be able to work and to eat, because all Barbadians must be able to eat at all times. COVID, you, the healthcare workers, know better than any of us that this is a one-in-a-lifetime event with respect to the extent to which this virus has claimed the whole world as its victim. And to that extent, memories of the 1918-1920 Spanish flu are being shared over the last few months to remind us of what the world has gone through. Before I hand over to Dr. Greenidge, I'd like to say to the others in the back, if you want to come forward, the chairs are spread out. One of the things that I hope to do in addition to closing the circle of enfranchisement is to allow Barbadians to be confident and to know that your place is up front, not in the back. So those of you who want to come forward, with me, you are always up front, so come. Thank you, Dr. Greenidge.
Just before you go to Dr. Greenidge, Madam Prime Minister, I have two announcements to make. Once you reorganize yourselves on the floor, be aware that the motor car PA 1779, PA 1779, your hazard lights are burning. And the second announcement, there are some safety requirements on the use of the gymnasium, so they are going to make an announcement now, which I hope you'll all pay attention to in the unlikely event that we have to resort to that. And then Dr. Greenidge, you're free to pick up on conclusion of those announcements.
Nobody coming forward? Because it's a little difficult for us to see you and for you to see us. So I want it to be, I am a little sorry that we're on a platform, tell you the truth, 'cause I would like to be down there with you all, with the mics, etc., like that one down there. Don't feel no way, just come.
Okay, Doc.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Prime Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. So allow me to begin by sharing my screen so everyone can see it. All right. So I'm going to present on the BOSS program. You've heard it. somewhere along, maybe in different forums. This is, I don't remember which number, but this presented many times before. And now, so let me get going. The Barbados Optional Savings Scheme, which is really overall a program to allow, on one hand, workers the option of saving, on the other hand, facilitate government having fiscal space to do necessary work, capital expenditure to soak up jobs. I will go through it in detail. Why, and the question is, why at this time? Why are we looking at such a program at this time? Now, before the onset of COVID, and the answer is really COVID, pandemic. Before the onset of COVID, Barbados was on track with its BERT program. Indeed, we were projecting revenues to continue to improve as the economy improved for this year, but along came COVID, and we are now expecting anywhere between $450 million loss to $500 million loss in revenues. Those revenues, of course, directly related to the tourism sector and other related auxiliary sectors. So with the loss, as COVID came on set, we're losing revenues, and we expect to continue to lose revenues. On the other hand, government had needed and have begun to step up in response to COVID as early as March. You have known about fitting the quarantine centers, both at Harrison Points and at the various other facilities, refurbishment to polyclinics, purchasing medications and medical supplies, testing kits, etc., and generally stepping up in response to COVID. And as COVID dragged on and the country started to lock down, of course, government responded again to try to provide assistance to households and families who became displaced and to generally mitigate the effect of COVID on the economy. So we've seen government would have come out with its $45 million support household program, survival program, which included, you see, 40% increase in rates to the welfare department's clientele, another $600+ going to the most 2,000 vulnerable families, support also to NAS through supporting NAS in the liquidity position, and we're still working on that also. And variously support, and the idea is to help households and families weather through this temporary but exogenous shock, severe. On the business side also, ensuring that businesses don't close down, because the hardest thing to get started is a business that has been shut. But if the business just come to a very slow pace, and we can keep it open and keep things just there or ready to take off, then you're in a better position to take advantage when the country, the world open up in general. So things like the 200 tourism zone facility, which allow hotels to refurbish and upgrade their product and to be ready when the world opens up for tourism. The VAT loan fund allowing business to borrow against their cash flow and their previous backfall, these sort of things, and indeed fast-tracking private sector projects where they can be done in order to soak up employment. All of this was announced by Prime Minister in two different budgetary presentations. But as COVID dragged on, we saw the national NIS claims, unemployment claims rising, and they're now south of 41,000 claims. That's not necessarily bodies. We were told that there's about 20-some-thousand bodies, but nonetheless, almost a third of the workforce. And so there's an urgent need. There's definitely a responsibility for the government to expand further its capital works program into areas that can soak up employment. So when government expands its capital work program where it can and bring forward things, especially those that are not related to tourism, like painting schools and upgrading schools, buildings and government buildings, roads repairs, and debushing and beautification and environmental works, and in sanitation program, upgrading and market areas, the fruit markets, the fish markets, etc. This actually employs people who will probably be displaced in other areas because of COVID, and that is how you get the government is trying to deal with this rising unemployment issue. And it is again the best way to stimulate growth and prepares us to pull off when tourism come back. And so the question, it becomes necessary for government then to create what we call fiscal space, $100 million in fiscal space that can then take and push it and channel it into the capital project program. Now, persons will refer to the term, fiscal space. What do I mean? And this is also in response to the question, why not open up to the rest of the country? Why just public servants? So let me explain the difference between fiscal space and financing requirement. Now, government is not in need of finance, like money to invest. Yesterday we still have about $1.7 billion in reserves from a low of $420 million when the program started 2 years ago. Government have a significant amount of the cash in deposits at the central bank. What we are trying to achieve is fiscal space. And let me explain the analogy. Imagine that you had a 40-foot container. And imagine that everything you spend has to hold in that container. So in there you might got, in your case, you might got your food expenditures that you spend at home. You may have got your mortgage, your car loan. You may have got other support for other family members. Whatever you must spend is in there. In government case, it's wage bill. It is the interest that it pays on previous loans in the container. It is goods and services it spent in different areas. It is it's capital works program. It is the money transferred to SOEs like Transport Board, different SOEs that keep them in terms of support. All of that is in that space, that 40-foot container. Now, that's my fiscal space. What I mean by that is that imagine you got all the money in the world. Outside your container, you have no lack for financing because you are the Bill Gates of Barbados. But only constraint is that what you spend must fit in that container. And in order to spend something else, you got to make some space within the container. So in government case, if it could shave off something within the container, we look at repurposing expenditures and refocusing them. We look at the goods and spend on goods and services, doing things digitally, etc. as opposed to be buying paper and things. We look at different things on the wage bill. Now, the other thing I must tell about this fiscal space, this 40-foot container, is that everything is recorded as cash. If it's not cash that you spend, it don't go in there. So the wage bill, which last year was $806 million, is cash, is a part of that container. Now, here's the idea. If government, can reduce that wage bill, not by reducing employment, because that's a commitment that government is not trying to hold fast to, maintaining and retaining employment, not by cutting salaries, because we don't want to go there either, but by paying a portion of the salary, not as cash, because in the fiscal space, that container, only cash goes in there. So paying perhaps 90% of your salary as cash and saving 10% by giving you a bond and making it worth your while to hold this bond by paying you something on the bond. What it means is that in my container, if I spend 10% less on salary as cash, instead of $806 million last year, say $706 this year, then that $100 million is space in the container. It's fiscal space. No one can now spend that money and channel it into capital expenditure. Has nothing to do with the financing outside. Space, fiscal space. And you may ask me, but who determines the container is 40 foot? Why not 20 foot? Well, you remember it all has to do with fiscal prudence. Prior to the BERT program, we will have had fiscal deficit averaging 7%. And that when you're averaging fiscal deficit 7%, it means that your expenditure is outstrips your revenue. So much so that it's 7%. 7% means you got to find some money from somewhere. In the case of a household, that means that your income is less than your expense on food and everything else. You either borrow from the bank, borrow from someone, or you have to do something, sacrifice. In government case, it usually means involving debt. So we fixed that. Now that government, we have paid down the arrears from $1.9 billion to just above $200 million. Expenditures is now not outstripping revenue. Revenue is outstripping expenditures, so much so that we have a small surplus, and even running a larger primary surplus to pay down our debt. So the fiscal house was put in order prior to COVID. What you don't want to do, join a shock to your system. What you don't want to do, join like that, external shock like COVID, is to worsen your fiscal so much so that when the world opens up and you're ready to go, you have problems that you cannot fix. You have commitments on your fiscal that is hard to pull back. You're back to square one where you're from. So the loss of revenues and the fact that you still want to maintain fiscal discipline so that you can pull off as soon as the world opening means that this is the size of your fiscal space. This is your 40-foot container. And you want to be prudent and live within that. All right, so that explains what we mean by fiscal space. So by paying some of the salary as a bond, it frees up space for investment. And again, investment is what will get you soaking the unemployment, soaking the labor that is being persons displaced by COVID, impacting other tourism areas, and prepare you to go. And one more thing to say, and some persons know, but why is it also critical to shift? I'm not here to talk about economics, but shift from what we call current spending. Current spending is like a wage, goods and services, and that to capital. Because capital spending gives you, we would say, much more bang for your buck. In economics, we call it multiplying effect. If a government spend $100 million in capital, many more persons will be employed, and them themselves have other people depend on them. Private sector get involved, so you get this spin-off effect. More so than if you spend it on other above the current expenditure. So that's the idea program. So by default, the program aims to two objectives. And when we evaluate it, think of the objectives. It aims to create the fiscal space on one hand and maintain public sector employment on the other hand. And by default, then why not open to the rest of the country in terms of buying bonds from government? Because government expended, those persons paying them, they are not in my fiscal space. Government don't pay the private sector workers that work at any private company. They are not in my fiscal space. So they're having bond provide me financing, but I don't have a finance issue, right? But they don't create fiscal space. So that's why it's reserved for the public sector workers. And it's seen to achieve the objective of not shedding employment. More importantly, because this money is committed to go into capital, it means that workers, by investing in it, is helping their brothers, their sisters, their friends, their families around them get employment once the program gets going. In terms of understanding pictorial, the image they have there, on the left-hand side of the pole is what currently exists. A worker works, he gets his full salary as cash, a deposit in Bank A, Bank B, Credit Union, Bridgetown. The proposal going forward from July, which is what we are targeting to start, this worker gets his full salary the same way. First truth of this, full salary. The difference is that he gets, or she, 90% of the large amount, I will show you the ratio soon, in terms of cash, and they get the other small proportion as a bond. And see how I earn in my fiscal space, because once the bond is issued, it doesn't go into my expenditure container, or 40-foot container, it goes as a debt for future expenditure in my debt container. So I get the space there. The worker gets all his money because part he gets as cash and part he gets as bond. And therefore the only issue which we had to work, and we worked tirelessly with the unions and we think and make sure we had on board, was that if a worker wants all his money now because he can't afford to save, he gets it immediately too. So with that said, let's look at the ratio. Let's look at what the bond first, the bond component. Now, when the worker takes the bond, this is a 4-year bond. He holds it for 4 years, and each year it pays 5% on the money he puts down in that bond. So if he puts down $1,000 every year, he gets $50 on that bond for 4 years, so he earns $200. But more important, because you want to provide liquidity, so you want to see your income flowing in. This is making money for you. You know what people say, that your money work for you? This is working for you. You will get every 6 months your interest. So instead of waiting 4 years to get your $50, you get $25 every 6 months, $25 in the next 6 months, $25. By the end of 4 years, you get your interest back, your $200 that you could invest, do what you want. But at the same time, the bond then matures, and you get it back as cash in your bank your $1,000. So to make it even more attractive, usually any investment you invest in a bank account, in shares, in anything, financial instrument, the interest you earn on it is subject to the tax. We call that a withholding tax. Even before you get it, it takes out, so you don't have a choice. For this instrument, government has waived the withholding tax. So the interest that $200 you get is tax-free, yours to do whatever you want. In addition, the bond is fully tradable. Because you're putting a piece of your salary down the bond every month, for 18 months, you can end up with 18 individual pieces of bond, so you could choose which one you want to sell. You might decide that one time you have 6 or 7 bonds, but the last one came in, sell that first, or because you want some liquidity. So you can choose. And on the other side, because it's such attractive, you already have persons, the credit unions have expressed support, the banks are interested, anyone that have some extra money who are not a public sector worker stands ready now to buy those bonds. So it's a ready market already creating, and French Bank plays a sector role in making sure that these are easily convertible. The other thing to mention is that these bonds, just like the last debt restructuring, the saving bonds that individuals had were not restructured. These bonds are also protected from restructuring. So that any restructuring, some asteroid hit the earth and Barbados, we have to restructure, this will not be part of it. And why did they make an extreme case like that? Because I don't want anyone to think that I am saying that it's likely to be restructuring. The reason why a country restructures is when it fundamentally is so out of sync that it can't pay its debt because nobody believes it can. And let me digress here to give you some confidence why this will not happen anytime soon. And we can imagine. First of all, the last debt restructuring by Barbados Day, which is fresh in everyone's mind, we restructured about $12 billion in debt. And right into those new instruments, a contract in the restructuring that if we were to supposed to, one, miss an external debt payment, two, miss 3 IMF reviews, or even 3, restructure, then all the savings that we will have made from that debt restructuring, which is about $1 billion a year, we will have to pay back immediately. So that is something that we cannot even fathom. But beyond that, as I say, the reason why country restructure is where their fundamentals are out of sync, that they can't support themselves and can't pay their bills. At the start of the BWU program, just to give you a digress here, one of the reasons why we had to restructure is because we were facing what I call the four horsemen of the economic apocalypse, the horsemen of the Bible. And you heard me mention a few before, but let me go through them again. That is why we restructured. The first horseman of the apocalypse was the debt. Debt was strangling the economy and strangling the government and strangling everything you could think that can possibly be strangled. We had debt at 176% of GDP, the third highest indebted country in the world. 156 or something was central government, and 1.9 billion, another 19% or so was arrears. That is like having high blood pressure. It means that you can't really do much. For the layman, for the average person, what it literally meant is that out of every tax dollar government collected, it pays 67 cents in debt service. It meant it only had 33 cents remaining to do everything, to do infrastructure development, to pay wages, to pay things. And if you recall, and that's why even with all the best intentions, the government could not have done any capital works program, and you will have seen the deterioration in infrastructure. Because if you're paying that much, you can't got nothing to do else. And in fact, it became so bad that after a while, the central bank was paying central government wages, printing $15 million every month. So you know that was a bad position. On the BWU program now, we have fixed that force, we've eliminated and fixed that horseman of the economic apocalypse. Debt now stands at the end of March at 118% of GDP. Through the debt restructuring, through paying down arrears, through proper fiscal management, that is where it stands. COVID, of course, threatens to push us back up. But imagine if it hit us when we were there, then crapos smoke your pipe, it did. There's nothing to do about that, right? The second horseman of the apocalypse, economic apocalypse, is reserves. Even more so for a country that is highly open, we call everything we consume, most of it, 80-90% is imported. the reserves that the blood in the country. Without reserves, you're dead. Exchange rate going through the window. In beginning the BWU program, we have $420 million in reserves. And we spend about $60, $70 million a week. So how much weeks that is? About four weeks and a bit that you can survive. And then there was Citibank loan coming due, one of those in July. Then there was the hurricane season approaching, another couple 150 to 200 million in our payments in any year. But imagine if we had that now, on COVID, because even where we are now, we'll tell you in a moment, we expect not to increase reserves like any year, but to lose about 700 million. The good thing is, our reserves currently stands at 1.7 billion. And on tomorrow, we go to the IMF board with our 4th review of the BWU program, which we have met all our targets that we have set and endorsed by the IMF. And once we pass the board, we will get 49 million usual disbursement US, another 90 million because of the impact of COVID is having the economy to help us to deal with the COVID effect. That will give us what? 1.7, another 300, about $2 billion. And if you do the math, assuming spending $70 million in a week, that gives us about 24, 25 weeks. My math may be off, but this time of the day. That second, so now we're in a better position. The second horseman, we have dealt with that. That is like if you had cholesterol in your arteries. Now because we've dealt with those two, it means that you are able to weather through, and if we hold together, this pandemic that is hitting us right now. If we didn't deal with them, you couldn't. It's like COVID hitting a person is not healthy. They stand a less chance of recovery. The third one, and the most important one really, although all the really critical, they're all intertwined, is the fiscal house. Government fiscal financing was unsustainable, in a terrible position. And one indication that is when you can't pay your bills. The fiscal deficit averaged at that point in time 7% of GDP. It means that expenditure, I told you before just now, outstrip your revenues, so you have to be borrowing all the time to meet daily payments. And if you can't borrow, because the debt's so high, you make your amount arrears, and you see that arrears was 1.9 billion. There are now 200 and something remaining to be paid off. Once you fix that, that's what we say. You don't want to worsen the fiscal space now. Once you fix that, it means that person has confidence that government can pay bills, and you will see the upgrades we got because of that. In fact, those three horsemen of the economic apocalypse being fixed, that's why Moody's look very recently said, while other countries are being downgraded, that Barbados outlook remains stable because the fundamentals is like a healthy person getting hit with COVID versus an unhealthy person. The healthy person outlook looks stable, while the unhealthy person, you will say in critical condition, you have to watch them carefully because you're not sure what will happen. Is the economy the same? The fourth horseman, which is always the one we've been working on, and always come in the middle of a program after you do the other three, is economic growth. And we have been doing that, fixing the employment state growth, doing business, making sure that people can, the town country planning and those sort of things are efficient. That is what we've been on and was targeting, investing in the right areas, getting people on board, digitization, that sort of thing. COVID has put a pause on that, but with this, what we're trying to do is jumpstart that and get it going in the right direction. I say all that to say you can have confidence that these bonds, besides the fact that it's given that they won't be restructured, economically there's no reason why you even will go there. The fundamentals are good. So let me explain now the portion that we recommend by default that goes into the bond versus cash. If a worker is earning less than 36,000 a year annually, and this is net of taxes, BWU, NIS. It also does not include any allowances, travel, those sort of things, your basic salary, which is less than 3,000 a month. You get all your money in cash and no bonds allocated. However, recognizing that this is definitely a savings opportunity, we allow those individuals to opt in and say, well, give me $200, $300, any amount, what they want in bonds, and we will facilitate that. Person earning between 36,000 and 50,000 a year, again net, which is between 3,000 and 4,166 per month, will receive 93% of their salary in cash, and the other 7% as the bond. Now, they can say, right now, I can't afford a full 7%, give me 5, give me 4, don't give me any, and we will accommodate that, fully optional. And I explain to you why this is optional hoping. This is fully optional. I will show you why that is in a minute. And thirdly, next category, between 50,000 and 100,000, you will get, which is between $4,166 per month and $8,333 per in a month. You will get 88% of your salary as cash and the other 12% in a bond. And then if you're earning more than 100,000, which is more than $8,333 a month, 83% as cash, you will get direct, and the other 17% as a bond. That will allow us to save the 100 million in fiscal space and give it, channel that into capital. Now, why I say this is truly optional? Because the program is designed in such a way that irrespective of whether you opt in fully, opt in partially, opt out partially, we still get the fiscal space. You understand? In other words, there's no incentive or bias one way or other as far as government is concerned, because we still get it. And hold that thought, I will show you what I mean. Okay? In the next slide, as I give you an example. Let's look through an example here. Is it too fine? Is at this moment that I last time had to go to my Excel file, so let me go there one time and take you through this example. You probably could say it a little better now. Let's assume this person is working this is using Z scale as an example. So this individual's gross salary is $48,756.58. Okay? Their net take home after taxes and AS comes out is $3,397.09. In February, March, April, May, even this year in June, this is what you would normally, this person, individual, called Mary Jane, will get her bank account in the bank in Broad Street or the credit union, wherever she receives her check from government. That is net, not net of any like mortgage or anything, but net of taxes and PAYE. What we are proposing is that from July, Mary Jane will get the same amount. Same amount. The difference is that because Mary Jane is in the bracket between $3,000 and $4,166 per month, Mary Jane will get 93% of her salary in cash in the bank account in Broad Street, where she bank, or the credit union, or wherever. The same 93%. However, 7%, which in this case is $237.80, next time I use some round numbers, $237.80, she will get as a bond in her bond account at the central bank with a statement to show it. So she gets two statements, which add up to her normal check. She gets a statement from the Treasury explaining her paycheck, what the net is. Your net is $3,397. Bam. $3,159.29 went to your account in Broad Street. Bam. $237.80 went to your bond account in Central Bank. Central Bank sends a statement to confirm this is what you have. All right? Let me explain the savings component of this first. Then I'll show you how we deal with liquidity for a person who don't want it, and show you why it's truly optional in that order. Now, remember this is coming out every month. So July, Mary Jane puts on $237 in bonds. In August, same thing happened. In her bank account, she get $3,159.29 from the Treasury, and her bond account increased by another $237. That's bond number 2. In September, same thing, bond number 3. October, bond number 4. So by end of 18 months, Mary Jane will have received 18 pieces of different bonds, each with own earning interest rate 4%, maturing for 4 years from the date in which she received it. She will have saved in her bond account at the central bank $4,208.33. If she had put it in a commercial bank or in a credit union, she will also have saved the exact amount. But here's the difference. With the bond, she now over the 4 years gets $856.07 in interest over the 4 years. And this is interest stream because they paid every first 6 months. It's very because you're at each point in time you have different amounts in your bond account. But they add up to 856. If she had put it in a financial institution, that $4,200 plus will have earned only $25 in interest. Assuming with the bank rate at zero, the interest rate in the bank's commercial at 0.15 and some are lower. But that is what you earn, but then what you're getting. Because the bank can charge you $5 a month maintenance fee. That's $240, so you owe your bank $214 or $200 that you put down. And I even count the fact that you get a $1 charge for going to a different ATM machine or $3 will be counted so you enter the institution. So however you count it, you lost. So this, by any means, is a no-brainer when it comes to savings. So, truth, any public servant who wants to save should use this as an option. But how do we deal with the person who says, for one reason or another, I really can't put down all my money in it. I can't put down the 237. Meridian says, look, I got a car loan happening at the credit union. I got a loan at courts. I can't really afford it this month, maybe in 5 months' time. I can't put down any. Give me the 237, my full check. I want my full money. 339717, I want to sit in my bank account and pay there. No problem. The government, Ministry of Public Service, send instructions to the Treasury to pay Meridian how much? Pay she $3,159.29, not the full amount. $3,159.29. At the same time, it sends instructions to the central bank to credit Meridian's account with the $237.80 as a bond, and then set it and send the money to her bank account in Broad Street, wherever it is. So Meridian on the payday goes to look in her account. She sees her full salary, $3,397.09, but she sees two different sources. She sees the 97%, $3,059.29 coming from the Treasury, and she sees the $237.80 coming from central bank. But even better, central bank is not taking and looking for somebody immediately. Central bank buys the bond immediately when the instructions come from the Ministry of Public Service, and then turn around and sell it. So when they buy it immediately, there's no delay. It goes straight to Meridian account, and there's no delay in her having her money when she reaches there. So Meridian, what has Meridian done? She has exercised her option not to have any bonds. And her wish has been satisfied. But what happens behind the scene? Why tell you three options? Because government still achieves its objective of fiscal space. Meridian has afforded government the $237.80 in fiscal space. How? Because when Meridian says she wants all her money, government still only issued the 97%, the $3,159.29. It, however, issues a bond in Meridian name, which central bank bought and give her the extra space. So in my fiscal 40-foot container, which I mentioned, I did not put Meridian 237 there. I created that fiscal space I'm still sent to use into capital. Someone else, John Liu, in the private sector now, who doesn't work for government but has some extra cash, buys Meridian bond from the central bank and earns the interest on it. Objectives are three. If Meridian says, next month, look, things are improving, I'm done with the courts loan, I don't got to deal with our courts building more for them chairs, but I still got my car loan. So I still can't put down 237. I got to put down 100. No problem. Government, Ministry of Public Service, send instructions to the Treasury saying, pay Meridian, how much? $3,159.29, the 97%. I record on my fiscal bucket again. Then it sends instructions at the same time to the central bank. Credit Meridian's account with $237.80 in bonds, and remember Meridian said she only could save 100. Sell 137.80 and give Meridian her money. What Meridian sees? She goes to the bank now. She sees the $3,159.29 from government, Treasury, and she sees the $137.80 from central bank. So she gets her total salary less the 100 she says she wants to save. Now what happens on the back end? What has government done? It still issued 97% in cash, in the fiscal space, in the container, and Central Bank takes the bond, the 237, buy it, creates a capital expenditure space. John Lou now, Central Bank sells him the other portion, the 137, and he could earn interest on that. Mary Jane got 100, John Lou got 137, Mary Jane got her other 159 in cash, 29, everybody happy. So really, let's look at it as in what it really is, bare bones. It does not matter. However the public servant chooses to opt in, opt out, and government achieve the dual objective of maintaining employment and maintaining fiscal space. So there's no incentive to sway anyone other way but except to present the program as what it is, an opportunity to save. All right? So we have dealt with the liquidity issue. That means in case a person wants. The bonds are also very fully tradable. Indeed, at any point in time, Mary Jane can, and I'm using Mary Jane, but I could use another masculine name in the public sector, John Brown. John Brown could have 6 pieces of bonds in his account, and something could happen and John Brown needs his money now because he got a medical emergency or he want to take a trip, or the ex-wife or girlfriend put some pressure on him. Either way, John Brown needs his money now. John Brown could easily call the central bank and say, listen, sell 5 of my bonds because I need my money right now. And because the credit unions have indicated that they stand willing to buy directly from central banks and funds, the financial insurance, other persons who's asking to be part, the demand is there, John Brown get his money. Now, what we can guarantee you is that at the point John Brown got his bond on payday, that the central bank would take it dollar for dollar. In this case, when John Brown exchanged $237 and say he want his money, he get $237 in cash, and central bank get $237 bond. That guarantee is only on payday. If after now John Brown decide he wants to sell his bond, but it depends on market forces, right? You understand me? Because demand might be so high that instead of getting the $237 dollar for dollar, remember John Brown earning interest on that, depending on when he said it already. The bank or the person buying might offer $102 to the $100, right? Because demand, or you might come at a time where it's soft in market, what we call soft. I mean, there are people asking for it, and he gets 98 cents, so it depends. But credit unions also has indicated that if the worker brings the bond to them directly, they're willing to give you par as it is, particularly if it's close to the time which you receive the bond. And that option also, I should mention, benefits everybody, win-win. Every time you look at it, it's win-win. I saw a car salesman, but that's not what I am. I'm just presenting facts. But you can't help get excited about the true facts. The win-win is that the credit union now, right now credit unions invest the money you put with them in the banks. There are very few options earning the same interest I just showed you, 0.15. If you present your bond to the credit union will lap it up. You know why? They're now investing your money in 5% earnings. They benefit, so you get a $1,000 bond to them and say, well, I want to pay my mortgage. They take it from you, cash it and give you $1,000, pay your mortgage, but they have a bond that will earn them $50 every year. They invest it. Their revenues increase or improve. The share values improve. You get dividends, win-win. You could even sell it. Your bond is so marketable, you could send it to your friend sitting beside you, or your aunt, mother-in-law, whoever. Use it to settle payments. 2 people interested, you got a buyer and seller. You download the form from the central bank, a change of name form. You go and see the priest because that's to make sure that you're actually getting your money and you actually agree of sound mind. Or some notary public, you have the form notarized, you upload to the central bank website, voila, change and the money. So it is truly flexible in terms of dealing with the liquidity. The other advantage for those who may be more interested of this is not only it creates a secondary bond market that we've been trying to create in Barbados for many years, where now average citizens and everyone can now start to think about investing and how to make money, making your money work for you. You hear about that. We make our money work for you by putting it in the bank. Unfortunately, money working so hard in the bank, it's losing weight. But it is now you can make your money work for you, truly work for you, and gain weight for you by putting it in this. So we create that secondary bond market. In addition, if you go for a loan from the bank, you want to buy something, a car, something, 40,000 car, and you already save $25,000 in your bond. You don't have to cash in your bond and lose your interest remaining for the rest of the next 2 or 3 years. The credit union or any financial institution will hold that as collateral against your loan while you still receive your interest coming from your bond. When you finish, you cash out, you go back your money, everybody good to go. So there are many benefits of bond market and creating a secondary market there. Anyhow, we'll pause here and then we can then deal with questions. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the presentation by Dr. Greenidge. I now invite you to pose any questions you may have about the BOSS program as articulated by Dr. Greenidge. Do we have a Zoom following? Yes, ma'am. Madam, you had a question? Oh, come right here. Use the mic. And persons may want, come to any one of the mics. Persons may want to identify themselves and their unit. You don't have to, but it would be nice.
Somebody help her with the mic, please. Somebody's coming there. Don't worry. The cameraman coming. The cameraman coming. Thank you.
No, that was hidden, so I would never have gotten that done. But I have two concerns. And so I want to make two statements, then followed by a question. Permit me to do this. And by two concerns, the Honorable PM, one of the, I think her mantra is she always says, we are in this together. Now, my point is, I'm saying, I think that even though you're saying that everybody, all public sector workers can become involved, I'm saying that that should be thrown out to everyone at the beginning. In other words, I'm saying, if we are all in it together, it should be all categories of workers, so that even if at the bottom you say, give me 1%, just 1%, because at the end of the day, that category don't pay income tax. They get the $1,300 when they file the income tax. That's one. I'm not going to dwell on that.
Want me to answer quickly for you? You don't have to move.
Pardon?
I can answer quickly for you, but
Sure.
You don't have to move. One of the reasons we left out persons under 35,000 initially was 36,000 is because, one, we realized that the margins were very tight, but two, we are going to be launching very shortly an aggressive housing program. And I think I've mentioned it a number of times. And this housing program is essentially for predominantly the lower income ends of the public service. Let me explain why. I don't know how to look at a policeman who may be a constable earning, what, $2,800 a month, Edwin, $3,000? But people want to sell him land at $25 a square foot. And the man didn't start to build foundation yet. And in some instances, the last government approved, for example, a development in my constituency, $25 a square foot and 9 foot a mole before you reach foundation. But I feel like crying for them people. You understand? So that one of the ways in which we could increase capital works, which is the same thing we're trying to do with this $100 million, is to apply it to capital works, is also by getting the housing program going. But the best way to get the housing program going is to have what? People who need to buy houses or to have houses built. So, short answer, if people under 36,000 want to participate, I think we've said that we will try to we will accommodate them. But we are conscious that that's the category of person, for the most part, that we need to enfranchise in another way first in this country, and that is by making them homeowners in Barbados. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. The next concern I have, now, I represent a category of worker in the public healthcare system, and approximately 31 persons. And I find that the very objective we are trying to achieve, obviously we are trying to save public sector jobs, we are trying to create that fiscal space so that, as you just said, we can do a number of things, a number of other works that is in the making. Now, I think that the very objective you're trying to achieve, this category of worker is neglected. They're fair for their jobs. They're interested in the project, but they don't know if after 18 months if they have a job because of the promise appointment. It is so bad that this category of worker, when we file income tax return, we don't even have a label there for us. We have to choose other, and I think they're too important to have to choose other when we're filing our income tax returns. There's no category for us.
Fret not thyself.
Pardon?
Fret not thyself. I have given the unions a commitment, not only in the social partnership, but publicly. And I think the newspapers carried it, some time back too, that persons who have 3 years or more, other than those who may have a negative reference on their report, there is no reason why we should not seek to move to appoint them as soon as possible. I think the Director General is with us this afternoon now, and she can reaffirm, but also Comrade, I was going to say Sister Burke. Delcia, you may want to confirm the last conversation we had with the same environmental health people and Mr. Rock? From NUPW as well. And we committed yet again. Now, at that meeting, however, we discovered that there may be some things that may make the appointment process a little longer. And I've asked them to go back and re-examine them. Delcia can confirm that if, for example, you say that you need the CMO must sign off on the health of the worker before appointment, etc., that doesn't make any sense. If the CMO must sign off, then so can each of the 600 other doctors registered under the Medical Profession Act can also sign off. So we're just going through now to see how we can expedite the appointments in order to give people that level of security. And the truth is, when you look at it, a lot of people, the majority of people, 8 years, 6 years, 7 years, 9 years, eh?
15, 20.
Some even longer, 10 and 12, 15. So this is we're only one government, but we're going to work as fast as possible and as hard as possible to do that. The customs officers already know, and each of the unions on this table knows that already. There were clerical officers in there for 15 and 20 years. We've created a new post called Customs Officer 4, which now has taken all 170-something, and we were able to do that en masse, which is how I'm trying to approach a lot of the other appointments. But I also say to you that I'm not afraid to appoint, Because there are some people who believe, well, if you appoint, then you can't trouble a person. We don't trouble nobody unnecessarily or arbitrarily, because that's not our way. But by the same token, if you're appointed, do your job. And once you do your job, then there are no issues. Because people, once they're accountable, we cool. Okay?
And
The other one that you mentioned I didn't know about, and I'll ask about that, which is in the filing of the income tax and what constitutes other. But we are also having no end of problems and have been, as you know, we inherited it, a new income tax system, what they call it, TAMIS, that has caused no end of problems over the last 2-3 years. And the government is still working with the developers. Obviously, we inherited the contract. I've said to them, let us try and get it worked out, but by the same token, if something ain't working, what are you going to do? Okay.
yeah,
Thank
but in
you.
all fairness, I think because that category of worker is disrespected, whenever we send correspondence, it's not acknowledged. You don't get, the common courtesy of saying your correspondence is acknowledged. The professional organization which represent us cannot get a meeting with neither the PS nor the minister for over 2 years. And I mean, this is
Which
not
group
good
is
enough.
this? Which group is this? No, but if I don't know, look, Jeffrey, get up there and talk to the lady for me, because I want to show her that far from disrespect. You know what my middle name is? Amor. You know what Amor means? Love. Trust me, we ain't disrespecting you. But equally, we can't read minds or know where every problem exists. And I accept that I'm trying to change the relationship between how the public servants function, how we reach for the best and the top, and how we support each other. Okay? And if you are really my friend, when I do ignorance, you're going to tell me what? Man, you're doing ignorance, hold back there. And when you're doing well, man, you're doing good, go forward. So that ability to talk frankly with each other without anybody taking umbrage is what is also critical. Because believe you me, if we reach for the stars and we give the best that we can give, this morning I expressed the 4 C's: confidence, creativity, okay, you have to think outside the box, and this program, BOSS program, is an example of Bajan creativity at its best.
I agree.
Commitment, which is why we are all here too, because we're committed to each other on this 166 square miles. All of us see what's going on in the States. One of the things I know reading here was a letter from a Bajan in the States saying, look, she was planning to come home this year with the gathering and come for good after 30 years, but after this week, she definitely coming and she want to know what she need to be able to move back. Fourthly, and anybody who has children or grandchildren who are likely to be more carefree in that environment in the States, now gotta be worried, especially if you are of a certain thing. And fourthly, compassion. If we don't care about each other, then we don't stop to treat each other differently. Now, I'm saying that this is not only for our children, but this has to be how we as adults, because Bajans learn not just by instruction. In fact, we learn more by example than we learn by instruction. And that is something that we as adults need to remember when we have children watching us, that we learn predominantly by example. I said all of that to say to you that I can't be responsible for the past. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I equally can't be responsible for every single act in the government of Barbados, and I learned that as Attorney General, because as Brother O'Neill would tell you, that there is always somebody who might go off and do something on their own. What I am responsible for is what I do when I find out what is done. And therefore, if there continues to be a lack of respect, then I will deal with it. But that is not either the value system or the relationship that we want to have. Because why? I need you to do your best possible job. I can't get you to do your best possible job if you feel that somebody disrespecting you, true? And vice versa, okay?
Now I want to pose my boss question. Could someone, let's say I'm Z14, and at the end of the 18-month period, I would have had 4,280 in bonds. Could someone say, okay, I don't really want to go through this. I have a little 4,000 there stashed. I want to pay up front. Could I get my interest and draw it in 18 months? It'd be there. I pay up front without you taking the bonds monthly. I pay it because I know that government really needs, they need that input. And I decide, look, I'm going to pay this 4,000 up front. Could I get my interest in 18 months instead of waiting 4 years?
Two things. For the amount paid in bonds to help on the fiscal, it has to come out of your salary. So you cannot pay. It has to come out of your salary for the benefit. Because remember, in my fiscal container space, only what is in your salary is recorded there. So if you bring it, it doesn't help. The other thing that
Tell her about the possibility later in the year about the pandemic solidarity bonds, which is a different one, not restricted to public servants only.
So the Prime Minister indicated there will be another opportunity, we call it pandemic bond, designed in order to not directly for public servants, that you could also put some of that money into to help us fund NAS, etc. And even in this one, you can also indicate your interest at the central bank that you want extra, right? But the only thing, just to correct, even if you have paid all your money in one period, it is a 4-year bond, and the interest is earned over 4 years. You cannot condense it into a small period, right? Okay.
I thank you.
But the newer one that may come later may be a different type of bond. May not need for a strip bond like that, because some bonds can be bullet, some can have interest paid differently, some can be a single bond. We could have done one bond instead of 18 separate bonds for each month. So it's like a canvas, and we can paint it how we want, but we do know that we are likely, between our savings as government as well as your savings or whoever chooses to buy, we're going to need to do something later in the year to be able to buttress the national insurance scheme. Okay? Thank you.
Any other queries? My Zoom, I recognize you. Oh, sorry, just hold on, Zoom. Eric, you can come.
Yes, good evening to the panel. I just want to clarify, can you opt for a less amount of bonds than what is stated, either higher or lower? Is that my understanding? Is that so? Higher or lower amount than the stated? Right. And can, after you change your bond, after you take your bonds, can you change the percentage that you want to take after you have started?
Every month, you can indicate a different percentage depending on your circumstance.
So it can be changed month by month?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I just want that
Let me
clarification.
also add for the absolute clarity. If, for example, there is an oversubscription, everybody want 20 or 30%, then at some point you would have to cap. Because we may decide to go above the 100 million, but we may not be able to go to 150. I'm clear? Because at the end of the day, when we borrow, we have to do what?
Pay back.
Pay back. Okay. So we need, in the debt management unit, to be able to make sure that it's smooth enough rather than being lumpy to cause difficulties in the future, which is what you and I would do with our own personal circumstances.
Well, now you're on the bonds, can people like pensioners buy into it? Because they might have disposable income as well.
We've been asked that, and once again, it depends on, in terms of upfront, it depends on what gap we have with the target that we're working towards. But without prejudice to that, if you had pensioners also who wanted to buy your bond, for example, they're free to do that. But we are aware that there may be, and that's why I said I'm waiting for the debt management unit and the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank for us to have a meeting later this week, and we will decide if we can accommodate pensioners there, or if pensioners will wait for the other one later in the year with the NIS. But we may be able to do some. And I suspect, quite frankly, One union, for example, has already said yesterday that they met and polled their membership, and 92% of their members want to go with the bond. It will vary from association to association to association. So suppose we come back and we find, look, there may be people, $20 million that may be available in bonds. We may then be able to find room for pensioners and others in there. So it's possible, and obviously for the people under $36,000 a year, it's possible, but ultimately there may have to be an upper cap if there's an oversubscription for it, and quite frankly, there seems to be a lot of interest.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Just hold on the Zoom, my friend. There's a lady in the blue in stand A. You have a question?
Yes, please. Good afternoon. So I have two questions. I'm from the Barbados Drug Service, a pharmacist in the public sector, and I don't know if y'all know a lot about the Barbados Drug Service, but we have a lot of unappointed officers and a lot of acting officers. The Prime Minister would have spoken to part of the question in terms of speaking to the appointments and so on, but my question would really be, for example, this month we had issues where a lot of our staff, they would have received diminished salaries because the paperwork or whatever would not have been processed in PRC, and a lot of them would have reverted to the salaries that they would have. In a case like that, my question would be, if it is that, for example, I fall into the 12% category, but at my old salary I was at the 7% category, what, for that particular month or the month after or whatever, what would be the bond purchased for that particular time? Because if I'm usually getting 12% bonds and I fall back into my old category, then for that month of, let's say, June, for that month of June, am I going to receive a 7% bond, or will you still take the 12% bond, and then, you know, when I get the rest of my salary, would that be rectified, or what would be the case in that particular example? That's the first question. And the second question is, are we going to be issued access login so that we could see what's going on with the bonds from the central bank and those things?
On the first, I'll answer. The second, Kevin will answer. Dr. Greenidge will answer. Because of the fact that you may change from month to month, you have the ability to give those instructions all up front, or you can change as you like. We gave the example this morning of a person who might have been acting for 3 months, 4 months, then you have interviews, they weren't successful with the interview, they've reverted, and therefore their salary is less, which is what I think you were talking about. The truth is that you will then be able to make the adjustment if you want. So that intervening factor is not only a factor of your personal circumstances that may have changed, what you're paying courts, what you're paying car loan, etc., if you're getting divorced, whatever, but it also applies to your employment circumstances. So the short answer is yes, you can make the adjustment. Okay, on the second part?
Yeah, on the second part, what you will get from the central bank is a statement every month with the opening balance. Say your opening balance was 5,000 in bonds. What was added? 1,000 was added in bonds, and the closing balance. But at the moment, you won't be able to log in. You will just have that. But anytime during the period, you can also call the central bank to inquire about your account, issue instructions to what you want to do. I must say the central bank is playing a much more active role in this scenario than it would normally play as it relates to bonds. And that is because we recognize that public workers, not everyone would be proficient in terms of financial literacy and bonds and what to do. I really want no one to be confused, so to speak, and worrying, how do I trade? So the bank is going to play a very active role. So you will still have access or further access to information related to your bank, your account, trading, taking, putting in during the period.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can entertain one from Zoom.
Hold on, I think Mr. McDowell wanted to speak.
This is CUPM, just as a point of information. Sometimes you may not know that you have been reverted. That is the problem. So there needs to be a communication.
Okay, I think that I'm learning that, and I know Minister Boston, you wanted to speak, so I'll speak after him.
Thank you, PM. I just wanted to, because I know it came up at least twice since I've been here.
Sorry.
Yeah. But the question of the appointments in particular, and I understand clearly what is at stake here, because from the time I assumed office, within weeks, I had to say to the Prime Minister that she has given me a Hollywood ministry because there were so many people acting. And we've been engaging the Ministry of the Public Service, and I've been speaking to the Prime Minister. We've made some headway, starting with nurses first. I remember, for example, all at the psychiatric hospital were appointed. We've recently had some appointments within the environmental health section, and we are looking at others. But there are a number of issues, even the doctors, for example, with outstanding gratuities, some 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years, and a lot of acting appointments. So it is something that we are not going to rest until we have resolved, because I personally would not like to be in the shoes of those persons who are being affected and impacted by this. And I give the assurance that we will continue to work with the Ministry of the Public Service and the Prime Minister who heads that ministry to make sure that we have these matters resolved as quickly as possible.
Thank you. One of the things that I want to do, and I'm glad DG is here, is that we have to relook the whole manner and all of the systems for how we function, how we appoint, how we notify. Because I really am tired of the impact that it is having on people and the morale in the public service. If I do nothing else in this job, it is to seek to make each and every one of you feel empowered that you are being employed by one of the best public services anywhere in the world. Because it is only when that happens, you and I both know, when do you feel passionate about something? When you believe in it, when you like it, when people treating you good. Not true? And that's what we need to work together, because in order for Barbados to claim background, where people say, look, them Bajans there, them feel them special. We don't feel we're special. We are special. We are special. But it is only we who can assert that specialness and keep that specialness. And that's done by all of us agreeing. These are the things that we agree to, that we should do. And these are the things that we should say, look, don't talk to them people so, then people come to town, don't shut down that window, then people take 2 buses to get here, you can't got them waiting. So those are the kinds of things, because if we don't want it for ourselves, we don't want it for anybody else. And it's those kinds of things that I don't have a problem in reinforcing, because if each one of us does that, one blow is do what? Kill old cow. And it will allow us to offer the best service of any public service, any part of the world. And that should be our ambition. World-class service delivery in the public and private sector for that matter.
I think I can finally take a Zoomer.
Thank you very much. We have a question from a Foreign Service officer who wants to know that for those of us who work abroad, how will this work? And how will we cash in our bonds if we are not physically in Barbados?
All right, so on the first part, Foreign Service officers are also recorded in our fiscal space, the expenditure to them. So they will get the same instructions coming to them and treat it exactly as any other public servant. Indicating, meaning they will indicate at the beginning period, in July, sometime before the 10th, their preference for all in cash, part bond, part cash, whatever, and that instructions will follow and be honored the same way. The second thing is that as opposed to in the past where you used to go and you buy a bond and the central bank give you a certificate of paper, and true, if I actually have one, I don't even know where to find it. It's all electronic now. So your bonds, you have an electronic account. Just you could be in Washington and have an account in a bank or credit union in Broad Street, and you can conduct business remotely. It's the same thing. You have a bank account, a bond account at the central bank. You receive your statements electronically. You can issue instructions to the broker or the central bank directly, sell, buy, do whatever. Instructions where to deposit your money. So it's a seamless. There's no difference than if you were physically here as opposed to physically here. In fact, over there, in fact, persons here, we don't expect persons to be gathering at the central bank to do business. Everything should be done remotely by online. Worse, you may even have to call our office and ask them something more detailed, but everything should be clearly there, instructions, etc.
And if I may just follow up with a question that is related, seeing that we are looking to digitize the public service, what format will these bonds take? Will they be printed or forwarded in an electronic form?
So I think I just answered that one, right? Everything will be electronic, nothing printed. Part of the savings we're doing on this fiscal, everything electronic.
Can I continue?
Any other questions from the floor?
Here.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4. We can take them in that order. Just get yourself near to a mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Patel. I work for the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and I'm also on the Junior Doctors Association. I had a few questions from a colleague of mine. Just getting them. The first question is, what are the cash surrender values of the bonds if I wish to cash them in before they are matured?
All right, so on the day you pay there, when this bond is issued, if you sell it cash in the same time, you get dollar for dollar. If it's $1,000 in bond, you get $1,000 at par. After that, if you were to hold them to maturity, same thing happen. You get the value of the bond at the maturity. But in between, they depend on the market forces, demand and supply. So for example, and we suspect it be more on the demand side. If you want to sell the bonds a year after, so you've benefited from 1 year of interest from those bonds, 3 remaining to go, you could sell it to an individual, accidents might sell it to you, sell it to your credit union. Either of those parties might say, well, look, I can still earn 3 years of 5% remaining on that bond. I can give you at par. Or a firm might say, listen, you already benefit from 1 year interest. Nah, I can give you 98 cents. So instead of $1,000, you get $998. But then somebody might come and say, well, no, don't take that. I can give you 101 because I still want to earn interest. So it depends on the market forces. Difficult to predict. My intuition is that given the demand I've seen, you're likely to get a par or something above, but that we have no control of.
I'll put even more on that. Barbadians are by nature people who are very loyal and very down the line. So that my own bet is that most people who take these bonds are going to hold them to maturity. The ones who sell will only be the ones who are forced to sell. If we doubted Bajan's behavior, look at every time there's a new player in the market, Flow, Digicel, etc., and look and see how Barbadians behave each time. So I think that we're likely to see people hold on to these instruments more so than trade initially. Ultimately, especially with your generation, because you're coming up, I would like you to be looking back 20 years from now and saying, on the 2nd of June, the carrier sat by the gymnasium, and the then Prime Minister talked about the fact that we need more Bajans to invest in different financial instruments and to have what I call the circle of enfranchisement completed, because if not, many Bajans will be tenants in their own country instead of being owners in their own country. And anytime people call my name, tell them that I say all the time, ownership matters. Ownership matters. That's why, ma'am, the people under 36,000, we want aggressively to go to put the housing program in place for them and to be able to bring the prices of both the cost of land, the cost of services, the cost of mortgage, the cost of construction down, because ownership matters. But it ain't only land that matters. I can own land, I can own bonds, I can own cash in my account. So it's to get people accustomed to the different things that they can own that have a value. And I hope that your generation of Barbadians will show us being not only aggressive locally, but going into Trinidad, going into Guyana, going into Suriname, going into Jamaica, going into the OECS. Because ultimately, I don't want this country to be measured only by what we produce locally, GDP, but what we produce, period, and earn from wherever we do it in the world, which Kevin would tell you is gross national income, which is slightly different. And we keep measuring by GDP, insular, rather than measuring where Bajans earning from. There are companies in this country that only got through the last 10 years, not because of domestic earnings, but because of what they earned elsewhere in the region, that they were able then to be able to support the central headquarters here.
My second question is, what happens to the bonds if I die before they mature or at any point?
They belong to you, part of your estate. So if I were you, write a will, young or old. I may have to take the advice myself. And if you don't want to write a will and do like Bob Marley, then letters of administration will kick into play, and the laws of Barbados are very clear as to who inherits your estate if you don't have a will.
Alternatively, doctor, do not die.
Pardon me?
Do not die.
And my last question, I think you answered it when you were answering the Zoom questions. What are the protocols for losing bond certificates? And you said it'll be electronic, so yeah? All right, thank you.
Just hold on, there's a lady here. As I said, is second, third, and fourth.
Come up to the mic there when you're ready.
She got my kid. She has one in her.
Okay. Good afternoon. I just wanted to commend the efforts being made to save jobs and stimulate the economy, given the current climate. I am glad that persons who may not be able to afford to keep the full percentage of the bond, that they have the option to at least convert a part of that bond into cash. And I hope that those persons who have no choice but to do so will not be penalized in some form or fashion. That being said, I have 3 questions. And my first question, I'm using the scenario given by Mr. Greenidge with Mary Jane. If Mary Jane does an analysis of her finances and finds that she cannot afford the 7% bond, which is, let's say, $235, but she can afford $150, Mary Jane knows that this will be a case for the next 18 months or so, unless she gets like a windfall of money from somewhere. So in a case like this, will she have to contact the Ministry of Public Service each month so that she can give them the instructions that to convert that part of her bond, or does she have to do that on a monthly basis?
No, once she gives the first instruction, unless she have to change it, that Mary Jane is covered.
Okay.
How much? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. My second question is, suppose there are no willing buyers to purchase Mary Jane's bond or the portion of her bond. Would this affect her getting that portion in cash at the end of the month?
The answer is absolutely not. It would not. First of all, the way it's working is that when the Ministry of Public Service tells the central bank to credit Mary Jane bonds with the 235 in your example, but Mary Jane wants to save 100, so sell the other 135, right? Central bank actually buys it immediately. So Mary Jane never have to wait. Central bank then turn around and sell it to the whoever working for it. So there's no delay between when Mary Jane gets a salary and her bond. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so by payday, Mary Jane goes to her bank, credit union in Bridgetown. She sees her 93%, plus she sees the extra, the 135. Because in our example, you say she's saving, her bond is 235. So the 100, she remains in her bond account, and the 135, she gets immediate cash because central bank buys it, and then turn around and sell it. You see? And we design it that way to ensure that no worker has to wait for their cash while looking around. Okay?
Okay.
But I will add to you to this that, again, based on my experienced economist, and I've been doing this since I can remember. I'm only 25 years old, but I've been doing it for a while. Demand can be very high for these bonds. So central bank is going to have no problem finding buyers. Buyers are going to be finding central bank and anyone hunting for these bonds.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is, okay, if Mary Jane sells a portion of her bond, I'm assuming the buyer will then purchase a portion also of that bond. So I just want to find out how does that work at the end of the 4-year period?
So when Mary Jane says in your example, she only wanted to keep $100 in bond, sell the 135, then John Lou, Mr. Private Sector, who's working at AB Construction, has some extra change. John Lou bought the bond for the 135, right? John Lou now has a bond for 135. Mary Jane sold it immediately her salary, so he has 4 years before this bond mature. John Lou now earns 5% on 135. Every 6 months he get, so 5% on 135 is what? That's about $7 and something cents. He gets that annually for 4 years, and then at the end of the 4th year, he gets back the 135 to his bank account in Broad Street. So all Mary Jane did is to pass on the savings to John Lou, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And after her then is the nurse at the rear of the building.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to the committee. And I would like to direct my question to the Honorable Prime Minister Motley, please. Okay, I'm here. I work at the Caves of Barbados. What I want to know, I've always been told that we were a private company.
Can you come closer to the mic? Sorry, I'm not really hearing you.
You're not hearing?
I'm hearing better now.
Okay, and I said good afternoon to the committee, and I want to direct my question to the Honorable Prime Minister Motley. Yeah, right now I'm laid off. I worked at the Cave of Barbados. We've always been told that the caves is partly wholly owned by the government of Barbados. So I want to know, we were only supposed to be laid off for a couple of months. I want to know at the end of that time when I am reapplied again, how do the Cave of Barbados, how do we stand in relation to the boss?
Okay, we're going to come back to you on that. And it's not just you, so don't feel no way. It's going to also be the Bridgetown Port and Grantley Adams Authority. Because typically our commitment to the caves now is really more in terms of the debt. So, and I mentioned the port and I mentioned the airport because neither of the two of those entities get a subvention from us. But we've had people from the port and the airport say, look, we would like to participate, and therefore we may have to find a way of allowing those of you who want to buy bonds from those public servants who are not taken, along with the credit unions, to structure it out and say, look, for every X amount, give access to the workers at the airport, the seaport, or the cave an opportunity, because even though they're not receiving money as a result, or even CBC for that matter, even though they're not receiving money as part of a government subvention, they're still public sector workers in terms of SOEs. And in the caves case, you are now transitioning out of that. So I'm hearing you, just as we heard the unions last week. We're going to go back and see how best we can create space for you. And at the very least, separate from this one, will also be the opportunity, as I said later in the year, about the NIS Pandemic Solidarity Bond. The one that we will do, Pandemic Solidarity Bond rather, to help replenish the NIS, some of the funds. And the beauty of this conversation, I mean, people ask me, you going up there to the gymnasium all day today and all day tomorrow? And what, I think the leader of the opposition say I ain't got no place in here. But if I ain't got no place in here, then I ain't got no place in the government of Barbados. Because this is the work of the government of Barbados. And these are the opportunities of the workers, for the workers in the government of Barbados. And I have a duty, therefore, to be here with you to discuss it. But what we are doing is not just treating to the immediate situation. I am satisfied that we are raising the level of awareness that will allow the financial literacy clinics and the other instruments that will become available to be capable of being managed by a household in Bush Hall, to a household in Oxnards, to a household in Edge Hill Heights, to wherever in this country, because we are educating people. When we took the decision to educate children and to give them access to school, it didn't matter where or who they came from. Once they were capable of learning and doing it, they were given the opportunity to move forward. And that's the same thing we're hoping to do with financial literacy, that some of you may use this savings thing to start a little side business, to use it as a deposit, to buy a property, to use it as something. And what it does is then to catapult you to another level of being able to provide for you and your families.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. I'll get back something to you all directly, just as we promised the port and the airport, similarly with the Caves of Barbados. In fact, the General Secretary raised the issue with Caves with me very recent, yesterday, I think.
The nurse at the rear. Yes, you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I think my question was answered by the young lady there, because I was wondering who we had to take this information to, because it is clear that we have options, and I was just wondering to who we was reporting these options to, others, as to whether we wanted to decrease the percentage or withhold for a month or whatever. But I think you answered it when you answered that young lady there.
Yeah, just to repeat, you will indicate that on the form which will come to you before somewhere early in July. May even be in this month, but you will indicate it on that form.
Okay. But we have to be signing off on these forms every month, or is this a one-time?
No, only when your situation change, you want to make a change in your plans, then you submit a new form. But your instructions will remain until you change it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to be absolutely clear, if you know that your situation is reasonably stable, you could sign it once and do all 18 months you think at the moment. You do that. Then 7 months down the line, your sister gets sick or something and you got help, or somebody in the family dies and you need to take out some money, 2-3 months. You can then at that point change. Even though you had signed for 18 months, you can say, look, I need to change because something has happened that requires me now to have access to more cash. But I only need to do it for 4 months and then carry me back to what I was before. So it's really up to you what we have to work on, and I make no bones about it. I've said it this morning, I say it again, that when these meetings finish this week, separate from what the AG has to do with legislation, me as Minister of Finance, sitting down with Central Bank, Ministry of Public Service, the brokers, everybody, just to make sure we get the systems right, because the execution for you has to be as seamless as possible, okay? And barring a loss of power for 2 days again, which I hope never happens in this country again, we should be able to have something that is smooth every payday, okay? And I'm trying to create buffers in terms of the timelines for people to put in things, to give everybody enough time to do what they're supposed to do. All right, my dear?
Earlier I had yeah, you can go to the mic whilst I make my comments. Go on. Yeah, earlier today I had invited the president of the BNA to the head table. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize that in this group of health workers, there is the president of the BNA and team, the president of the NAAAB, and the healthcare workers are also represented by NUPW, BWU, and there is, of course, BAP. Thank you.
Good evening to the panel and the Prime Minister. My name is Sandrine Beckles, and I am a member of the National Union of Public Workers, and I work in the Ministry of Agriculture. I have bonds in at the Central Bank, but I get them from CLICO, but they ain't worth anything, so I want to know if I work for less than $36,000, and if I want any of these new bonds, how much I could afford to pay.
So if you're working for less than the 36, you belong to
Yes,
that category, you can indicate on the form, which was in July, how much ever you feel that you can afford to put into bonds. And we will honor that.
Yeah,
So,
but,
go
but
ahead.
I have bonds in with CLICO, and you know when the Prime Minister restructured with Burke, the bonds ain't worth a lot. So I want to know if when the country improve, if my bonds will worth more.
The bonds, yeah.
The CLICO bonds were given because, as you recall, the last government left the situation there for 10 years. What we've done is to finally settle it. At the end of the day, the CLICO bonds also have interest and things that you can use. I suspect that after this, once we create the secondary market through this, you're going to find more people willing to trade and to move their CLICO bonds than before, okay? But the biggest problem is that Barbados does not have an active secondary market, an active market for people trading. And as I said, we already know that Bajans by nature tend to buy and hold on rather than buy and trade. And we're hoping that we can have a combination of the two. So, simple answer, I'm not sure which bonds you have, but if they're the ones that I think that you have, ultimately you will be able to benefit. But remember, when you bought it from CLICO, it wasn't a bond that you were buying, it was an insurance policy, not true?
Yes.
And a savings plan.
Yes.
And that's the problem. And CLICO, let me put it in context for everybody. The government pay out $600 million in bonds and get $60 million in assets from CLICO. So the taxpayers have effectively subsidized CLICO and British American by over $540 million.
Yes, another thing too. I work in agriculture and I will soon be retired, but we need, agriculture is the next person that we are looking forward to boost the country, and I will be retired in 2 years' time. So when I retire, you got nobody else can put in my place, but you need people in agriculture, and some of them need to be appointed.
Same point I made earlier with the healthcare workers. That commitment for anybody who got 3 years or more is for everybody to be appointed, not just healthcare workers, so agricultural workers, etc. I actually thought you were going to ask me a different thing because I don't believe that you're retiring in 2 years. I thought you were going to ask me that when you retire, that you want to spell retire R-E-T-Y-R-E as opposed to R-E-T-I-R-E. And since you are spelling it R-E-T-Y-R-E, you would like a half acre to do your own farming.
Thank you.
Or even a quarter acre. Give it a Pepe a step to remind us that you are really not retired in 2 years.
Constance? Sorry, Madam President, BNA.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Joanna Waterman, President of the Barbados Nurses Association. Good afternoon, Madam Prime Minister, Dr. Greenidge, head table, and my colleagues, everyone. Let me say that, first, on a personal level, my husband and I, as retired persons, consider it really a creative proposal, an opportunity to invest when that facility comes on board for retired persons. So from a personal stance, we congratulate the government on this proposal. However, speaking in the capacity of representation of our nurses, healthcare workers, as citizens, let me say first of all, we take keen interest in national matters that impact all of us. So wherever we can, we would want to assist with keeping our brothers in employment and assisting with improving the fiscal space that would improve certainly our country, enabling improvements of roads, schools, etc. However, as the first speaker said, our plight as healthcare workers has been horrendous. And following on from that, I want to reinforce that we need to address the issue of sporadic salary payments, and I know that our Prime Minister has really given some attention to this, and we have that back on the table again. Sporadic salary payments of our temporary workers for as long as 6 months, and I know our Minister of Health and Wellness has been working with us with respect to the appointments that were outstanding for up to 10 years. And as a matter of fact, I want to say here that remember that persons who were appointed officially in the Gazette 2017 have still not been paid, are still being paid as temporary workers. And I want to take this opportunity also to remind that the Z scale adjustment that is needed, because a significant number of our nurses are in a Z pay grade that will not enable them to enter this kind of investment program at all. So because you're starting at Z27, and even for our registered nurses at Z23, at that beginning level, they really are not eligible to enter such a program because it would stretch them beyond their capacity. So I think I can say then that the category of nurses from Z19, 18 upward who could safely enter into the BOSS program, that certainly would want to do so with a good, clear understanding and knowledge of what they're actually entering into. And the biggest question has been what degree of flexibility is there regarding the execution or the arrangement of bonds from month to month. And I think the question has been answered already, and that similar question has come up over and over again. The concern being that when the circumstances change with respect to expenditure on a monthly basis from month to month, what instructions can then be given accordingly so that they're not jeopardized or penalized. And I think I've heard clearly Dr. Greenidge explaining then that there is that degree of flexibility and an allowance for making the adjustment. So I hope I heard correctly that that is the case, because that was as one of the major concerns. So in that regard then, I really would respectfully like to request a forum specifically for nurses across all the institutions via Zoom to increase their knowledge and capacity, because several questions will come up over and over again, and we only have a limited number of persons here. I know we have persons on Zoom at present, but I think with increasing knowledge of the operations of the investments bond, I think that will increase the level of confidence to participate for those who can participate. So thank you.
My Zoomer.
Before you go to Zoomer, if I may, I want to for highlighting and spelling out so clearly as you just did. I am very, very keen, and when I spoke just now, I gave the example, I think, of a police officer, a police constable earning, but I'm also very clear that there are a number of nurses, and every time I go into the hospital, they are one of the categories that say to me all the time that they would like to be able to access housing and mortgages. And I think we can give you a clear commitment. In fact, I'm hoping that this weekend, the first ad that will go out asking persons who have financial capacity to both construct and or provide mortgages to submit into government within the next 14 days so that we can enter discussions with them. That has nothing at all to do with the other housing construction program, but what we're trying to do is to move housing on 2 or 3 separate tracks in order to be able to start to satisfy the demand. And for many of those persons, a person's first major investment in this country is usually property, house or land. So we hear you, But in addition to the house or land, we want people now to do these other types of investment vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Zoom.
Thank you, Co-Chairman. First question, can consideration be given to providing public officers with financial planning assistance? I ask because I really want to help government, but will need help in assessing my current expenses to be able to see where I can create the space to help.
Thank you for your question. We do recognize, first of all, that there's definitely a need to improve financial literacy, not only within the public sector, but across Barbados. As the Prime Minister indicated earlier, we've been embarking on a series of financial clinics. But in the meanwhile, while that's happening, we also have the central bank stand ready to provide the intermediary process of ensuring that bonds are traded, converted, etc. And any public servant can call for advice on that, in that part. Beyond that, I think you can also reach out, even within your ministry, and I mean it's a large public sector, but any of the economic team, member economic team, we are all available to offer advice wherever possible, through your union or in collaboration with unions. So there is no, we want to make sure there is no absence of information or understanding if you need help. So do reach out to your union reps. They have contacts with each of us, our economic team, and we will make ourselves available. But we do want to get those literacy clinics off to start, and hopefully, well, we expect them to start very soon. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the floor?
Good afternoon again. I received two other questions. If a public sector worker opts out of their bonds from the beginning, should public sector workers not have first offer on purchasing available bonds?
So what the Prime Minister alluded to that earlier and said, well, not alluded, she actually said that we will have to work on a mechanism with the central bank, because once a public servant opts out to their bond, it goes to the central bank and is available on the secondary market. But we will now have to think about a way to perhaps carve out some preferences so that other public servants and then individuals and then credit unions in that kind of order have access to that, to those available, now made available bonds for to purchase.
My second question, when some of the individuals reviewed the slides on the BOSS program, they were wondering if the full maturity is 4 years or 5.5 years based on, if you look back in the slides and calculate. I just have to find the slide that they're
So I think I understand your question. So the maturity, each bond, if a typical public worker, Mary Jane in this case, she's receiving her 235 in bonds in July. That of July this year, 2020. That 235 bond that she received will mature in 2024 July, right? All along she will get her interest on that every 6 months. So that by the end of 2024, she would have, not end, by July 2024, she would have received her full interest on it. And in July 2024, which is the 48th month, that 4 years of that instrument, she will receive her $235 in the bank. At the same time, in this same year, next payday, which is August now, she will put in another $235. That guy, that piece, bond number 2, matures in 2024 in August, 1 month after the first one. The one she put in September matures in 2024 in September, 1 month after. So in fact, Mary Jane is putting in her bond over 18 months, and it will mature over 18 months starting when the first one starts in 2024. Make sense? You understand? It also means that Mary Jane, just as she put them over a period, she receives them over a period. Yes? And it also helps the government to pay its debt payments over a period. Is it clear, or you want me to run? Yeah? Okay.
Another question is, you were saying in terms of persons who would basically buy bonds based on the availability of funds that they require for their monthly living. It may vary for persons. Is the process going to be that we have to go to our accounts department and fill out a new form, or is it going to be on the same platform electronically that we say, well, we want 5% or we want 7%?
So we envision that it will be the same way you got the first memo asking you how do you want your bonds, all cash, etc. If your circumstances change the next month, that same mechanism will be the same way. So if you got it electronically, you return it the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, that will be, information will come and remind you and explain what's going on even further. But the main point here is that you can, each month, change what you want, your preferences, depending on your circumstances. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Zoom, I should inform all of you here that my information is we are being followed by 80 persons on Zoom and 470 on other social media.
I have another question, and it reads as follows. Suppose I am not able to start at the beginning of the period for the bonds, but after 3 months, I can now afford to join the program. Will I lose out on the 18 months period and only pay for 15 months? Or will I have to continue paying in for the same 18-month period?
No, you only have 15 months available to you going forward. The program begins in July and will end in December 2021, 18 months.
Thank you. And when the bond interest is paid every 6 months, is this available immediately to the bond owner?
Yes, it's available immediately. You don't even have to ask for it. It comes, Central Bank will send the funds to your bank account or your designated account where you want the funds go, and you will get a statement indicating the interest has been paid, etc.
Thanks, Doc. Yes, ma'am?
That question, I was about to ask that question about, like, for instance, for me, if I am not available to start when you start, then if further down the line and my situation got better, then if I can come in and join how do I go about that?
Let me repeat for the benefit also. Let's say you can't save anything at the beginning for 3 months. When the form comes to you, it will indicate you want your money in cash. And this convert, and you pay it immediately, you get all your money. 3 months, in month number 3, when you get your survey for your salary coming, situation has changed. You just indicate, I want to keep the bond, or I want to keep half of it, I want half in cash, or whatever the situation. Same way.
Any other questions from the floor? Dr. Ward.
You're a Jimmy Cliff boy too.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for being here and everybody on the head table. I just wanted to make a quick point or get some clarification. My colleague asked the question with regards to when somebody wants to change what they've signed up for. And that's come up a few times. I think it would be important for every individual who wants to make a change to be clear as to what is the last time, when is the latest they can do that stuff based on when their payroll is run. Right? So that's important for our colleagues. You know, you can't change it the day before payday and expect that change is going to be done. So it's important to know when your payroll when is the last day for payroll. And with that said, I think it's also important then on those who are administering this program, this BOSS program, that it also be made clear what is the last time before the next, what's the lead time that you have to give when you want to ask for your changes, right? It can't go too late in June and then can't understand why the change wasn't put in place in July, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think that's a very useful suggestion as we review the execution, to make sure that we don't only know the timelines internal to us, but that we share the timelines with you so that persons will know realistically. I can't wait till the day before to say that I need to adjust or not to adjust, but you can do it in time for the next month. Okay? Thank you so much. I was trying to tell you that you were a Jimmy Cliff guy, because when something don't work the first time, you find another reason to get it to work. You can get it if you really want.
Any other questions from the floor? If I don't see any indicator, I go back to my trustee Zoom.
Thank you, Co-Chairman. If there are changes in the environment, including changes in government, what impact will this have on the sustainability and continuity of the BOSS program?
My name is 3 letters, but it is not G-O-D. It is MIA. Suffice it to say that I would trust and hope that you, the people of this country, and we will do what we have to do. Look, the last government put savings bonds. There were calypsos encouraging people to buy savings bonds. The last government, the last governor of the central bank got you to buy quite a bit. When we had to do what hopefully will be the only one ever restructuring in this country, we took a deliberate decision to exclude savings bonds because of the impact on the average Barbadian household or worker. I want today to repeat that and to hope that we can find a way of including in the language that kind of commitment. I do not believe in advising myself. I have not paid any fees to practice law, and therefore I'm not going to advise myself on those matters. But suffice it to say that I have asked for ensuring that we have the greatest protection that we can going forward on this. The legislation also, which is likely to come to Parliament, is likely to be sunset legislation, because there are a couple of pieces of bills that we're changing out of an abundance of caution, so that when I hear others speak, they are slightly ahead of the curve, because while we are dealing with the principle of what it is we're doing, they have gotten into the mechanics, and we have the mechanics, but those will be rolled out separately.
Any other questions from the floor? Since there is this lag, permit me to remind you that the reason that you're invited to be here is to give you every possible opportunity to ask and explore all the considerations that can reasonably be foreseen in the implementation of the BOSS program. I think that you become empowered the more information you get. And by the presentation and the questions you've been asking, there has been an abundance of information, which means that you have got a tremendous level of empowerment. Please, please use this knowledge to inform your respective unions and associations as to the indication, or rather as to the direction you would be empowering your union to speak for you. Are there any other questions on Zoom?
No, please. That was the last one.
Well, since it seems that all of our audiences are satisfied, yes, sir. There is one exception who is not satisfied.
Good afternoon, panel. My question is, there are some of us who will be not in the government service very much longer, maybe less than 5 months. And I would want to know how the BOSS program would affect that kind of scenario. And the second question is, I need clarity on what is positioned with retirees.
Retirees or pensioners?
Pardon me?
Retirees or pensioners?
Both.
I couldn't resist, Brother Bell, to put you on the spot.
Okay. So you're not telling me you're going home? That's a conversation you and I will have after.
Okay, all right.
But no, for the 5 months that that person has remaining, clearly they can opt to have the bond or not to have it, whatever they want. With respect to retirees or pensioners, we had the question earlier this morning about gratuity and pensions, and I indicated then that we are going to look, depending on the demand, to see what else we can accommodate. But it is not open-ended to pensioners, because at the end of the day we still have to cap the amount that we take, because we have to repay. So I'm not going to do anything that's going to destabilize us at all. But to that extent, if we have some extra room, and if the debt management unit and the central bank and all of us say we can actually go to 120 instead of 96 million where we are now, potentially, then we can do it. So we're looking at it and we'll get back to you on that. But we've actually had a lot of requests from pensioners. Sorry, I should have said government pensioners as opposed to private sector-based pensioners, because it's the fiscal space that's created by the relationship with government is what matters.
Brother Kani.
Thank you. The conversation so far has been about bonds, and indeed the union has indicated in the last session that we had that we were comfortable with the position in relation to how the bonds were being offered. But I also want to allow public servants to ask questions not necessarily related to bonds, because what we have here is a grand opportunity with the Prime Minister to answer things that you may not have necessarily been able to ask previously. So we spoke about appointments, and
you must be in the Prime Minister's head. Maybe I'll go and get an X-ray now from somebody, or a CAT scan.
Right. So, for example, I would like to also mention that we discussed at the level of the social partnership flexible working arrangements, and that policy is going to be completed very soon, where public officers will have the options of staggered hours, telecommuting, and so on. So that is something that you guys can look forward to. So please, don't waste. If there's any other concern, any question that you may have that you want to raise with the PM or any of the panelists up here, please feel free to do so.
Oh, okay. Brother County, I heard you, but you know that this was a meeting called to discuss the impact or to inform members on the impact of BOSS. and to give them an opportunity to gather as much knowledge on the BOSS program. I cannot speak for the Prime Minister, but that is a matter that she would have to decide on. But we came here for the specific purpose of dealing with the BOSS program. So to this end, I will entertain other questions related to the BOSS. There seems to be... Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I recognize you.
I work at the National Sports Council. I don't have any questions. However, I do have a concern. My concern is with the process. That is a smooth process.
Could you speak closer to the mic?
My concern is that the process is a smooth process, unlike what we have been experiencing now for years with TAMIS. I mean, because when it comes to workers and wages and salaries, I heard earlier that the percentage comes out automatically, and then so part comes from my workplace and the other comes from the central bank. My concern is that the process is smooth, that there is no long wait if I opt out to have all of my cash so that I can, do what I have to do on a monthly basis. And that also working for a statutory corporation, there is something, we often find differences between us and mainstream government. So I just want a, clarification on whether the process is going to be across the border, regardless of if it's a statutory corporation, mainstream government. Those are my kind of concerns.
Well, thank you for the question. It is not the first time for the day that such a question has been posed. There have been assurances and assurances, both from Dr. Greenidge and the Prime Minister, that in the event that such does occur, the process will in fact be seamless, so that there is no worker who opts not to receive bonds, that when payday comes, they should not see a difference in the quantum. What they may see is that total coming from two different sources. I can speak no clearer on that than what I've just said, but if you're not satisfied with that, I would yield to the experts. Are you satisfied with that? Okay.
I have no problem in the well, I'm speaking personally, of course. I think that if we are not ready, because we have timelines and everything to meet, I understand that, and the Prime Minister did say that the program starts from July, but if we are not ready, my thing is feel free to say we are not ready and push back the program instead of workers ending up getting the negative end of it because of all the kinks and stuff like that.
I can add nothing to what you have said. Doctor?
Doctors from the psychiatric hospital, and I think this extends to the polyclinic doctors as well, and staff, that are between contracts, they sometimes do not get paid for months. And they say that they're essentially taken off of SmartStream. They would like to know, would they still be able to benefit from the bonds when they're paid, or would they lose out on the months they were not paid?
Somebody has dropped off SmartStream for whatever reason,
Yeah, so
That would have to be some kind of reason, probably related to the renewal of their mandate or whatever, but we're trying to resolve those issues. But at some point, you've got to be paid. And if you've got to be paid, then the instructions can go down, even if you go walk with them to Sprague Street. You understand? Because I assume Smart Stream broke down for a reason.
What's up with Sprague Street?
Central Bank.
thank you.
Does that satisfy you, Doctor?
If it is a case of delayed mandate, we can deal with that. Because you still have to get your back pay.
Yeah.
So that you can still say, look, I'm taking X percentage and I want Y percentage in bonds whenever it comes.
So
if it is a case of interruption of current, that's what I said, then we go walk down to Sprague Street.
So say on the 18th month, so the last month that the bonds are being offered, and they haven't been paid yet, will they still benefit?
But if they
when
haven't,
they're paid?
I hope they would have been paid for the 17 months before. If they haven't been paid for 18 months, then we got a real problem.
No,
And
I
that's
mean
what.
on the, so say from now, from July to the 18th month. So doctors in the polyclinic and staff at the polyclinic haven't been being paid month to month. They get sometimes their pay 3 months later. So say on the 18th month, and they've worked that 18th month, and their pay is due, well not due, but they get it 3 months down the line.
So long as for the period within the 18 months. So if we start in July, we then go to July 2021 plus 6 months from there, which is January 2022. So long as within that time frame, we can accommodate. But I also do, and I'm serious about this, and so is the minister, we need to get to the bottom of these delayed payments. I refuse to accept that it can confound an entire government. And I'm going to literally drill down to make sure that if we have to deconstruct and reconstruct how we're paying, and believe you me, we can't do everything at once. The government spent a lot of its time focusing on the immediate, the sewage, the debt restructuring, which took till December last year, a number of things. So I'm giving you the assurance that this is one of the things that I'm applying my head and my officers to in the Ministry of Public Service, because it makes no sense and it does more to undermine the morale in the public service than any other single action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sister Tekla?
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Prime Minister.
Correction, Sister Dean.
Minister, members of the panel, I represent the Barbados Nurses Association, and I rise in support of the doctor who spoke about not being paid, because the concern for most of our nurses would be when they drop off Smart Stream, and as you said, I don't know how you can drop off, but the reality is that when they do drop off, sometimes they're not paid, and it could be for as long as 6 months. So if you're interested in joining something like this, first you must be able to plan your life. But when you don't know when next your payday will be, it will pose a problem. And what I will also say is that in recent days, after all the applause, the nurses are saying that when the applause has died down, they still need to feel appreciated and they still need to live. And if I use myself as an example, I would have gone through this over the 70s, and having to raise a family in a situation like this is not easy. And I think that in this day and time, and I know that you're trying, but the nurses are living it as you are trying. And as you said earlier, one blows kill an old cow. Madam Prime Minister, these old cows are about to die.
Not looking at you. You're looking very well, ma'am. And let me say,
what you said.
I said you're not looking as though you're about to die.
I'm about to die from pressure, although I am
No.
retired.
Look,
Yes.
hold my hand, because I got the same amount of pressure or more, and we ain't dead in yet.
I'm serious,
We ain't
your
dead.
nursing needs.
I serious too, and what I said just now while you were coming to the microphone. I'm not going to repeat because there's no need to repeat it. But I've said to you that this issue, and it's not just the Ministry of Health, it is other ministries. The Barbados Public Service is based on a model that existed before independence. Much of the rules in the Barbados Public Service are decades old. Even the last Public Service Act is now what? 15 years, 13 years, 14 years? So that what we have committed to doing is trying to deconstruct and reconstruct to see what is it that needs to be done in order to better manage the validity of a person's appointment or acting, the linkage between smart stream and public service, and being able to recognize that more damage, as I said, is done to the morale within the service by us failing to be able to comply with this on time. So what we have a system that doors on that side of the gymnasium come from a different manufacturer and they lock down automatically. It's not ideal. So we've got to go back in and take it out and put back in new doors. We have a system that says this is how you're appointed. If this is not working in the third decade of the 21st century, then let us change it and let us see what can work. Bearing in mind that you have still to look at what is the public purpose you're trying to serve and what is the public mischief you're also trying to avoid. And does technology, allow us to do things that we couldn't do before? Of course technology allows us to do things that couldn't have been done when some of the other persons in this room first went into the public service of Barbados. So, you know, life is ultimately about trust, and I can only ask for it, and I can only say that I've learned in my life that time and God are my best allies, and that you need time to be able to show that what you see is what you're going to get, and what we say we're going to do, even if it kills us to do it, we're going to do it. Largely because when I leave this scene, I want to make sure that this country is trusting of the public space. And why? Because people who are not strong, people who are not the mightiest, need a transparent and fair public space to live in this country. And I didn't come to public life just to be able to talk and this and that. I came because I feel that one, injustices need to be corrected, and two, the opportunity to be the best that we can be is within our hands. Now for that to happen, how do you think I feel? When I came into public life 25 years ago, the level of willingness, my former secretary sitting down there when I was in law practice, the level of willingness of persons to do certain things and the level of trust in the public space is more than it is now. And why? People may say, well, we get knocked out, kicked out, licked out, enough. I hear you. But in life, if you don't trust again, you're going to shut off all the opportunities and all the possibilities. And all I'm saying is, I ain't asking for nothing else. We need in this country to create that space of trust again. Will we be perfect? I told you that we're not divine. But will we try our best, and must we try our best? Yes. And can we get to near perfection? I hope so. And can we, more importantly, sustain it? I hope so. And these are the conversations that this country must be having, instead of some of the things that I see all over the paper and all of the other things, because these are the things that are going to take us to greatness. These are the things that are going to make the next generation recognize that they can't take for granted what went before. And at our level in government, a government must not operate like if it is a monolithic structure that is not caring. It can't. Because at the end of the day, if I treat you as if you don't matter, how are you going to treat me? As if I don't matter either. And what I'm trying to do is to get everybody, and also, and I want to know, period, to all supervisors and all managers, we are not always right. We have to listen to the people who we're supervising and managing sometimes. And in listening, we have to be able to make judgments. And here's what happens. There are times when I will say, that's a good idea. Then we move with that. And there's another time when I will say, I can't move with that now because of ABC. And there are even some instances where I can't tell you what the ABC is at this point in time. So we have to be able to trust each other a little bit in order for each of us to do our job in the space that we're doing it. But we have to do it from a good place. And we have to do it from a place of, I hear you, this is the common mission, let's do it together. Today we can push hard, tomorrow we might have to hold off a little bit because of circumstances beyond our control. Make sense? But I hope that if nothing else, that we come out with a renewed purpose and mission together, and that we get everybody, not just at the level of the public service, but all supervisors, all managers. They asked me about the new mission statement for public sector workers, and they had a lot of fancy words, and I said, look, what is it that we really want to say? I come to work every day to do the best job that I can do. That's what I really want to say. I can try hard every day. I might not succeed every day, because every one of us will fall at some point. But it is what we do after we fall that matters. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Harper. To Dr. Greenidge, I hear you talking about selling off bonds. How would you sell off bonds? The bonds, basically, if I buy bonds, they be registered in my name, right? How would you go about selling off bonds to the other person?
Thanks. All right, so when you buy bonds, you will have in your bond account a certain amount. Let's say you had $1,000 in your bond account at the central bank. That's where the bond will be registered. So you have many choices. Let's say you want to sell them. It means that, let's say you want to sell to the good doctor over here, and this have nothing to do with central bank. You and the good doctor agree, it's $1,000 in bonds, and you got, say, 3 years remaining. You and the good doctor agree that he would give you $1,000 to those bonds. He will then continue to own the bonds. So you download the form from the central bank, fill out the transfer information, have it notarized by some priest, lawyer, somebody. The good doctor gives you money that's between you and he, but the priest is confirming that it's a good transaction. You upload the form, and central bank changes the name of the bond from yours to his. It's electronic register. So that's one way. Another way, you can call central bank and say, listen, sell my 1,000 bonds or sell 800 and send my money to my bank account in Credit Union A in Bridgetown. Central bank sells the bond, maybe to the same good doctor or someone who wants it, credit you for $1,000, or depending on what the market is at, maybe get a little less, a little more, and send your money down to the commercial bank. You go in bank, you see your money, the bonds are no longer in your name, it's in your owner name. Or you can instruct your credit union, for example, you want to sell your bonds, now you have a buyer, you tell the central bank, here's my buyer. The credit union central bank does the transaction and you get the money. So the point is that each time it's electronic register, as opposed to in the past where it was a physical piece of paper. So it's quite easy just to change the title and it becomes a legal document for the next holder. You answer your question?
Yeah. My next question, can workers, instead of buying bonds in my name, can I buy bonds in my children's name?
At the point in which the bond is true, since it's a contract between you and the government in terms of paying you your wages, it's just another way of giving you your wages. So the bond would automatically come in your name, but it's quite an easy process for you to tell the central bank, well, look, I want to transfer a title to my son or my daughter or whoever. Yeah? It's just if you had a bank account with your name and you say, man, look, I want to put my son's name on my bank account just in case anything happens. You call the bank, they add him to your account. It's not dissimilar from that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. In the back. come forward to one of the working mics, which is closer to the front, and therefore defeats your objective of trying to stay hidden.
Hi, good evening. Just a clarification. These bonds are for 18 months or 4 years?
Each of them is a 4-year bond, but you are getting your bond issued every month as part of your paycheck.
Only for 18 months.
But you do it over 18-month period. So you will keep adding to your bond account every month for 18 months. After that, each bond starts mature 4 years from the date in which it was issued.
Yeah, so they're 18 4-year bonds.
Right.
And then after the 4 years, you will get the money and the interest and everything?
No. So the first bond you put in July, yes? Say it was $200, or say $1,000 to round that, say it. That bond will mature 4 years from July in 2024, July 2024. However, no, don't do it like that, because you're getting some income. Every 6 months, because it's calculated 5% a year, so each year that is earning you $50. You will get $25 in January, $25 in July, $25 in January 2022, and it keeps going there until you get your full $200, which will be on July 2024, and then you get your $1,000 back in cash. The one you put in August now starts to give you interest 6 months on them. So in February 2021, you get your $25 on that bond, and it keeps every 6 months, and then in August 2024, you get the last piece of interest on that fella, plus you get the $1,000 that you invest in August in that year. And that happens 6 to 18 months. So the one you put in 18 months from now, which will be December 2021, you will get starting, what's that, 2025, December, right?
Thank you.
Okay. The time is now past 4:30. We will be going into another meeting in less than half hour. So all that remains for me is to thank you for being here and thank you for your level of participation. And when we adjourn, I trust that you will go safely and go in the name of God. Thank you. Do have a good evening and journey in mercies.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to come. This is how societies are built and strong relationships are built. Thank you.